Now we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty of what Indians are all about.
I still say we Indian people are believers in the truth. This is the way of life that was given to your people. You're born an Indian, you're going to die an Indian. Indianness is a good life. You're facing an Indian this afternoon.
Up by daylight and looked out and I couldn't see anything, just dust. And the explosions were going off all around us. We were in an artillery barrage. I guess maybe that was the first time I really prayed.
Finally, word got out. This boy said, this is a group that's going to make an invasion. Next day, well, sure enough, Eisenhower came and he talked. He said, I feel honored that you would pick to make this invasion. Indian people were, they were volunteering more than any other race. There was no animosity toward the service, they were really volunteering. And you grew up fast in the service. I will tell you, that military life is rough. In the 30s, I was going to school at Kellerville. And so we had ball team, And then during the summer, we had a independent team. So we played ball all the way around.
Of course, when we had depression, we weren't starving because we had everything we needed on the farm, with the exception money. Money we didn't have, but growing everything that we needed, we was well, provided.
I took agriculture when I was up there at Chilocco, and for about a year or two I was the president of the Future Farmers of America there at the Chilocco Indian School, and then I played, I was in the band. While I was there too, I learned to play the saxophone.
Well, I was still in high school. I graduated in '41 from high school, and we just were not aware of that. We were more interested in whether Preston was going to beat Schulter in a ball game.
There was nothing else to really do in those days, except, they had church meetings. Oh my God, they really did have church meetings. I mean, people really went to church.
An Indian man that had little money, and he'd have ball teams in the summer, down to church, down to Big Sikta. And we'd go off, every week we'd go off somewhere and play these other churches,
And then Sunday morning, people, they have cars. They used to ride horses mostly. And you could hear people walking, coming down the road. They would be singing. And at the school, they would have a place there for them to have church.
Then we had our little hometown. They had entertainments, and through the week, on every Saturday night, we had what we call street dance, and that's where I learned how to dance, and I enjoyed it.
I formed a little dance band while I was there too. I had one drummer and one flute guitar player. I had a guitar player and then a bass fiddle player and myself. There were just 5 of us, and we just get together on the weekends or somewhere we could get away from everybody, where we wouldn't bother anybody. We play to our heart's content. We didn't use no music, we just played by ear.
At the age of about between 14 and 15, I learned to barber. So I started doing that. I charged students 10 cents a haircut.
There's another Indian guy around here had money, and he had a basketball team. And we played basketball all winter. We had pretty good success, too. We had good teams.
Every church brought their own set of tents. And they could cover this area here all over, just nothing but tents to come into the church convention and association. Those 2 were the biggest meetings. And they went for, I guess, the whole week. They'd come in first of the week and stayed clear through Sunday. And they really, well, same way the other way too. Storm dances, they had storm dances between the church and the stomp. You didn't have too much to do.
And those days, there wasn't no bus. And on a rainy day, well, here come a kid down the road just a hauling, singing on, carrying on. And we'll be pouring down and raining, and we go to the school, and we have muddy shoes. Our clothes just be wet. We'd be sitting in the desk.
I remember my mother was working, but we didn't get to eat till about 9 o'clock at night even. Bring home some bologna so we could eat, wake us up to eat supper.
A lot of us still burned kerosene lamps. That was the only lighting we had. A lot of us still got our water from water wells. We didn't have running water. And when you speak with Native Americans about pre-war, you're talking about people who still lived in rather primitive conditions. And so a lot of the things that were happening in other parts of the world just made no impact because we didn't have the means to observe that.
We didn't know too much about it. I didn't anyway, about world events until Pearl Harbor happened, and then that woke everybody up, I guess.
I ask that the Congress declare that since the unprovoked and dastardly attack by Japan on Sunday, December 7th, 1941, a state of war has existed between the United States and the Japanese Empire.
I'd heard about the Japanese bombing Pearl Harbor, but I guess I didn't know too much about history. I didn't even know where Pearl Harbor was, and never had heard of it.
Fortunately, one of my roommates had a radio, and so I was listening to the music and doing my studying, and then all of a sudden, this voice came in and said that Pearl Harbor had been bombed. Well, I didn't have any idea where Pearl Harbor was, and I could not understand why it was so important that they break in on this musical program and deliver this message.
Well, like I say, we didn't have no kind of radio where we could hear what was going on. It was more or less neighbors discussing, telling,
I went to the show that afternoon, and when I got back up to the campus, I don't know who the person was, but some student told me that they bombed Pearl Harbor.
He said, Japanese has bombed Pearl Harbor. We're at war with Japan. Now, he says, speaking to us recruits that just joined the company, he said, no, you those just came in the company. This is where you show your stuff. It's going to be real McCoy.
And that's what I say. Oh man, just feel like just feel like if you had died, that whole warm feeling just goes over your whole body. You knew you was going to be taken sometime or another. And when I got drafted, well, gosh, Lord, said, I don't know anything
about fighting, don't know anything about the, you see them tanks and everything, you know, and said, I tell you, it's going to be something I don't know nothing about.
Maybe 5 of us in our community, you know, went. So the community always had services for their boys in service overseas.
Well, my mother, she was hurt, but when I get about ready to go overseas, well, I told her, forget that I was here. Just worry about these other boys, because I know that I wasn't coming back.
I told my mother I'm going, you know, and she just said, well, good luck, I guess, and hope you could make it all right, you know.
Mother said, well, they said she had a boy already in there already. She said there was enough worry by him being in there already. And now she said, I'm going to go, she said. And so she said she just about got sick over it.
A lot of times they just shake hands with you and just turn around. They just couldn't take it.
My aunt, too, when I was getting ready to go to town, you know, being Indian, they have ways. And she had a little buckskin bag made up. She had a string on it, and she said, here, I want you to wear this. She said, wear it all the time. She said, you'll never be thirsty. And she gave me that when I left. And I wore that thing every day, I think, till I got home.
Oh, my uncle, when he was taking me to town, he said, he was talking Creek, it went like this. He said, when you're going to become a soldier, he said, you're going to have to carry a gun. He said, when you shoot, he said, I want you to shoot and make that first shot count. He said, if you miss, and whoever you're going to be shooting at, he said, if he don't miss, he's going to get you.
But at that time, I believe it was John Davis, who was chief at that time, and he gave a short farewell speech to the fellows, you know, and he told us that he would keep us in prayer, and told us that I'm sure that each of you fellows, whatever church you come from or what denomination you belong to, I'm sure that they'd be praying for you. And that was a last word that, you know, we had heard from our chief.
People held their emotions pretty good, both ways. The soldier or the service people and the mothers and fathers.
Well, anyway, we got there where there was a sergeant, I guess, and he told us to line up. So we lined up. Oh, he marches, boy. He throwed his voice, you know, boy, really rough, you know, boy. I said, I don't know about this.
I don't care what kind of pretty hair you had. They'd cut that off first thing. That would put you down lower than a dog. Or, you know, your pride, ego, whatever you had, all went down the drain.
Of course, when we first got there, we had shots, you know. I remember very vividly having 3 shots at one time. The corpsmen stood on either side of you, and they just shot you, gave you your inoculations on either arm. And then we went to the dentist, and the dentist would look at your teeth, and then if you had to have some teeth filled, they'd fill them, but they wouldn't deaden your gums.
Well, boot camp to me, I was a draftee, and boot camp was kind of a joke. We'd get out of everything we could.
I know there was 1 or 2 suicides right in the back of my barracks where I was living, due to the fact how true it was, what they were writing to this kid, or these two fellas, I do not know. But it was family back at home that they committed suicide. They felt that I'll never be home to see my parents, so I'll just do it over here.
Den Lebensausdruck unseres Volkes und damit...
Ich will heute wieder ein Prophet sein. Wenn es dem internationalen Finanzjudentum in und außerhalb Europas gelingen sollte, die Völker noch einmal in einen Weltkrieg zu stürzen, dann wird das Ergebnis nicht die Bolschewisierung der Erde und damit der Sieg des Judentums sein, sondern die Vernichtung der jüdischen Rasse in Europa.
Hitler spoke over that radio. And I don't know a word in German at that time. But the tone of voice that's coming from that voice is strong. You know, the sound of it is so deep and just, you know, force behind it, the voice that bringing those words out. And I thought to myself, he don't sound like a happy man.
For an uneducated man, he was smart. And he made a move at the right time.
I don't know what I'd have done if I'd have made him. But on the thing, he was causing all that problem. Just like, well, that's right now, I can see he was just like a devil.
During that time, we used to talk to my grandma about that, because she couldn't talk English. So we used to tell her about things, what's going on. And the Germans, and this man Hitler, she said, she called him Red Man. I mean Red. He's a devil. That's what she used to call him. So she gave him that name because he's a devil.
He was the whitest of any white that could be, you know. And his troops were kind of like that. If you didn't have the same rank as they did, they didn't want to talk to you. Or things like that. There was no mercy. Oh man, that was total. We admired Russia because they fought a total war. I mean, that was total war. Even though they're a white race, they still, they dealt out misery to each other. Russia and Germans did. But like I say, he annihilated the Jews, and you know they're white, and so I'd say they were trying to be the whitest of all the white, and something like that you never could stand for.
They were real soldiers, those Japs. They wouldn't give up. A lot of times, if they were surrounded or knew they couldn't get out, they'd commit suicide. A lot of them did that. They felt it was an honor to die for the emperor.
They were selling all the scrap iron and stuff to the Japanese, and everybody had made a big joke out of it. Yeah, said they're going to be turning around and throwing it back at us one of these days.
I think everybody remembers that picture of that little baby that was sitting there in that bombed out area and just crying its little heart out. And I saw then that the Japanese just had no real compassion for other people, and some of our guys found that out for real down the road. So you know, it seems terrible to say, but I hope they're still burning in you know where, because they were responsible for a lot of good people being killed.
My grandma used to say, but here's one thing that these white people, they're going to get so smart that they're going to do away with themselves. They're going to make things that's going to blow themselves away.
Even my parents did not understand English much Well, they didn't, period. But they've always had a feeling that us being getting into the Stuhutke world, so to speak, that some of these days something like this would happen.
You're going by stages. You've already seen this other stage. You're going from boy to manhood, and then you're going from there, and they get you down there. That propaganda is really something. They'll even take you out to the ships, and you will load rounds of ammunition, 155s and some other, any kind of ammunition. You start loading them on ships, and you say, my God, there is a war going on.
Well, I always figured, well, someone would make it. It may as well be me.
Grandma used to say, then there's going to be a war. And they said the Indians going to be called to fight along with the white people. She said there's going to be a lot of Indians going to lose their lives. Long time ago, when the Indians used to get into war with the soldiers way back there. But here now, said we come now and said when they have a war, well, we're going to be fighting right along with the soldiers.
You receive a call to bring one of your squads over to another sector of the battle perimeter. You have a truck at your disposal and you load your men. You're going down this mountain road and you come around a curve and you see a little child sitting in the middle of the road. What do? Do you stop and pick that child up and set him on the side, or do you just run over him and go on where you're supposed to go? And that's the decision you got to make. It's a moral judgment. Do you spare that child or do you spare the whole country?
There was three of us up there on top of that hill laying down because we was under fire. That MP, he was kind of a young boy. I said, stay down now. He made a bad mistake by raising up too high because they got him right in the head and he never knew what hit him.
We were 90 miles from London, and you could see them bombing it every night. They just glistening and glowing in the dark. I mean, they were really pounding London.
Well, just lost cause because we didn't have anything, no artillery or anything other than World War I stuff.
I didn't fear nothing because I know that I was dead, and I didn't fear nothing.
One of the Marines I went with, this friend of his had become so despairing that he just took his own gun and just blew his brains out.
I know one particular guy, he wrote to his wife every night, never missed a night. He used to tease him, George, why do that? I said, well, maybe somebody is dating my wife, but I'm going to keep up this correspondence. Maybe when I get home, if I get home, I'll see him. That's why I'm doing this.
And this old pilot won't know if we want to go riding with test flight. We flew with him, but he used to be Hitler's private pilot way back when the war first started. He said Hitler was a rug beater, he called him. He said he'd get mad, get down on the floor and beat on the rug and chew on it and scream and holler, and then he'd get up, and he said he was all right then. But he said he'd throw a tantrum and he'd just get down on the floor and beat on it and chew on the rug, and he called him a rug beater all the time.
there wasn't nothing up there to keep the Japs from coming on. One fellow there at Nicholsville, they gave a water treatment, stuck a hose in his mouth and turned the water on and held his nose and everything. Just forced water in until he killed him.
I was directing the tank dozer. The guy's falling, getting hit. You can tell your jaw was getting by yourself. But there's another group back of you. Everybody's falling. Who didn't, they barely made it. And I get hit late that evening.
I prayed that the Lord wouldn't let one of those hit my foxhole. And he didn't. But several other guys were killed that morning. Were hit with the shrapnel or the shells. Hit one guy that looked like he maybe had been real close to one of those shells, because we found parts of his body scattered all over the area. An arm over here and a leg over there, and it was bad.
The Air Force used to bomb about 2 weeks ahead of us. And when we get to these towns, the people, some of the people was ordered to leave, but some of them didn't. And those that didn't, when these Air Force bombed, oh, I tell you, there's bodies, there's arms, there's legs, head, just here and there. And then there's some of them, body was hanging on the side of the wall. Oh, it was awful. And that's what, down you see little children in there with it. And then I thought, that really got me right then.
We could always tell when we were getting near a Japanese camp. They had a peculiar odor about them, and you could smell them before you ever got to their camp.
There was a barn sitting here to our left, and we'd already cleared out everything, and then we backed up, settled in for the night with the doughboy rent. I guess the German patrol didn't know we was in there. We didn't know that we were, the tanks and everything was already in there. And we let them get right in front of the tank, and I mean, we all laid into them. And we didn't see them, but they laid there and cried all night long, hollering for their mamas, I guess.
You become scared before you get there. You're bound to get hit. They told us about that. There'd be a very few come back.
One night we had to go out and meet another squad, maybe a jeep would meet us towards the end of the line. And then we come back and was going to go about 1 o'clock that night. And our post had reported they heard some heavy equipment out that way.